So, welcome to Training Transformers, brought to you by Kitaboo. I'm your host, Tejas, and this is where we dive deep into the evolving world of learning and development with the industry's most innovative minds. In each episode, we're going to sit down with some visionary L&D and training leaders who are reshaping how organizations approach learning, development, and knowledge transfer in a rapidly changing digital ecosystem. So, from emerging technologies to proven methodologies, we explore the strategies and insights that are transforming workplace learning. Today, I'm excited to welcome James Robles, a training and enablement specialist at HID. James is a certified professional in training management and a master educator. So, welcome to the show, James.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So, before we dive deep into the developments in L&D, I'd first like to love to hear about your story. Like, could you take us through your journey in the training world? Like, what first drew you to L&D and the training field?
Yeah. So, funny thing about me and my family is that I'm a fifth generation educator. So we have been teaching for a very, very long time. Started in Mexico and then over here in Texas, where I now live. So we've been doing that for a while. So my first job out of college was actually teaching English in China. So I got my first taste of teaching there, and I was like, I think I want to do more. So then I went into a prepaid debit card company where I was their insights and analytics manager. So I did that for a few years, and I thought, I really do miss the education piece. It had just been such a big part of my life, and I really wanted to go back into it. So I went into special education, which also happened during, the pandemic. So we had to switch virtually, which is, typically an in-person type of industry, but we had to go virtual because we just had to. So then after that, I was missing the corporate world, and there's definitely a place for business and a place for learning, and that's L&D. So that's when I got my master's in education, I got my CPTM, and I've been in learning and development ever since, and I haven't looked back. It's definitely a good choice that I made, because a lot of people kind of fall into this industry, but it was definitely it was intended.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting how we actually started with your overseas experience of teaching, and then you got into education,
hmm
corporate world. So, yeah,
I
it just got connected so much.
Yeah, it just kept pulling me back in. I couldn't get away. So
Fantastic, fantastic. So, I mean, you have seen the industry evolve in your journey as well, right? From education to now the corporate world in L&D. So, speaking of evolution, I mean, one of the most significant changes we are seeing, especially post-pandemic, is the shift towards more hybrid learning, even in corporates. So, based on your experience, how are organizations or corporates effectively balancing this digital and traditional approaches right now towards
yeah,
learning?
yeah. So typically what I see is we approach these things from two different kind of perspectives. So the first is fiscal. So we look at what's the cost of implementing the training. And the second is the experience. What kind of experience do we want the learner to have? Some trainings like compliance, right, it make more sense to deliver online, because it's cost effective. It doesn't require much interaction. We just need to make sure that we do it. But then you have, like, on the other hand, something like a management training, right? That would benefit from personal discussions, some role-playing exercises, those kind of things. So it's all about matching the delivery method with the learning goals. The training industry, through my CPTM, actually has a great framework. They have kind of like they have a rubric or a quadrant that you can use to determine whether it's high impact and low cost, or low cost, high impact. So there are tools out there to help you make these kind of decisions. I will say that when you do these kind of things, when you're building these kind of trainings, determining whether hybrid or online or in person, you need to ask yourself, like, what's the goal of the training, right? What's the best format that we can achieve these things in? So that's basically what I've seen taken, what I have seen people take as far as approaches to this, and what we do
But
internally.
it's interesting because I think that literally means that there needs to be a good balance between both of these approaches. You can't take everything virtual as well. Because as you said, for maybe management trainings, you need a more face-to-face conversation, more personal touch that needs to be given. Whereas
Mhm.
the compliance part can be taken part virtually as well.
Yeah, I definitely think that when people have the chance to do things in person, especially if they're like intrinsically motivated, they're gonna do it. And they get more out of that and enjoy it a lot more than just, sitting on a computer screen. Because I mean, Zoom fatigue, like
Yeah,
video conference fatigue, it's real. Like people
yeah,
really get tired of this. So it's a nice break.
yeah. That's definitely what the world went through for the last 2 years, 2020 to
Hmm.
2022. Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's really interesting how organizations are actually blending this kind of learning approaches, both of them. So speaking of effective learning, another crucial aspect I think that organizations are right now struggling with is probably the shift towards more skills based development in terms of like really upskilling your workforce. So how do you think L&D teams or training teams can create these programs that don't just fill today's skill gaps, but they actually set up employees for their further career growth, long-term success?
Yeah. So in uh, in my work, this is kind of where the change management hat really comes into play. So to close immediate skill gaps, like if you need to just stop the boat from sinking, you can leverage tools like LinkedIn Learning, software, um, whatever software you purchase, they have training modules that they offer to their clients. So make sure you take advantage of that. Even resources like YouTube. But for long-term skill development, um, okay, I would let me give you an example. So imagine you're onboarding someone and there's a form that they need to fill out, right, as part of the process. So we don't want to just give them the form to fill out. We want to tell them why the form is needed and explain its purpose and provide a clear filled out example, like a template almost. So that small step not only helps them complete the task that they have to do, but it builds their foundational skills and they carry it forward. So I think we should also do the things, and I've seen this done similarly when we're designing roles, right? We need to think about how each position scaffolds skills to the next step in their career. So, um, I going back to the embedding things into the everyday workflows, like your training is there, right? When they're filling out the form, it's part of the process, right? And again, when we're making careers or making jobs or roles, we need to make sure we scaffold those in the sense that we're making these career ladders. So we're showing these are the skills for this role, these
Yeah.
are the skills required for this role,
Yeah.
and this is how we get there. And then you build a plan with that.
I mean, when you have done this in the past, especially the planning that you just talked about with the skill levels,
Mhm.
what are the kind of outcomes that you've seen? Have you seen any positive outcomes in the
No, yeah,
workforce?
definitely a lot of positive outcomes, especially with the career ladders piece, because it gives people something to work towards,
Yeah, the
and
motivation. Yeah,
yeah, and it creates a objective goal, right? That's neither tied to politics or anything like that. Like it's tied to you need to have this skill. And so you
in order
work
to
to
work.
achieve that skill. And
Right.
so it's been very positive because people, again, have something to work towards. And then when it works, they become just evangelists of that process even more. It works, do this, like if you stick to this plan, you can get to this next step.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, this kind of approach for the career
Mhm.
ladder really works
And
Really?
it was a big effort. So it was, it was a team I was on, and then it was like someone, a representative from the HR team, a manager, um, representative was there. So it was a group effort. So it does take a lot of people to, build these type of career ladders, but I mean, you can totally do it.
Yeah, it pays off in the end. Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
So that was a really great, compelling example. Thanks for that, James.
Of course.
You have done some, you have talked about some really good points about skill development needs. Now, this actually leads us to another challenge, and that is, firstly, as you said, creating content that supports these various learning requirements. So, how do you approach content creation to support both of these, formal training, like say compliance training, and then the continuous learning needs, like the the career ladder that you talked about, those kind of needs?
Yeah. So I mainly I primarily train on software. So when I create training content, I think of it like building with Legos. Okay. So everything needs to be modular. So for example, uh, when I'm training, I make sure everything I create is a consistent format so it looks the same. So that way I can plug and play different parts of my training depending on the audience. So let's say they purchased training on two different roles, but they're not going to use some certain features. I can pull those features out, no problem. Training still looks consistent and it still walks them through things. For continuous learning, I tend to focus on quick, digestible pieces like FAQs or troubleshoot guides. And again, embedding the training into the process. So that way, that's less training, less touch points, less things you have to worry about because they're already built in. Uh, so that's basically what we do. So also I serve as vice chair of the Security Industry Association for their education committee. So I'm on their so I'm their education committee vice chair. And what I've seen here also, what's critical is communication.
Yeah,
So you can create the best training in the world, but if people don't know what it's about or don't know it's available, it's wasted. That's why promotion, I think, whether it's through email or newsletters
yeah,
or internal social channels, yeah, it's just important. It's just as important as the content itself, because you can't force people to want to continue to learn. There has to be, again, an intrinsic or an extrinsic motivating factor.
yeah,
So if they're going to want to learn, they're going to do it out of their own accord. You just
yeah,
need to tell them what's available
yeah.
because they don't know what they don't know.
Right. That's a
Yeah.
really great point. Yeah. And in terms of these, approaches that you're done towards content creation, how do you feel employees typically engage with it? Have you seen a lot of engagement from them based on, these different types of content that you've created for them according to
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
short content, long content? Yeah.
Right, right. So as far as like short content, like the FAQs and the troubleshooting guides, I find those to be highly impactful and highly referenced.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things, like in internal SharePoint or like intranet, I'd like to keep, up and center because I know people are going to be looking at those frequently.
Yeah.
For longer type of content, as far as I like a management training, so to speak, I would actually be promoting that maybe once a quarter just to make sure I'm getting any of the new guys or people who have been thinking about it that just need that extra push or that need that extra nudge. At some point, the cadence is going to get very frequent,
Yeah.
but like at least the people are going to know what's there and
Yeah.
what's going there. And you could just keep it to a what's new.
Yeah.
You don't even have to continue repeating the courses
Yeah.
unless you do some sort of annual campaign where,
As you say, communication is also going to be pretty important for the employees to know this. Yeah.
oh yeah, 100%.
So, I mean, the content strategy you have described is pretty compelling and makes me think about, the people who actually ultimately help deliver this learning, like you. So, in your experience, what role should, say, managers, in L&D or training teams play in this whole development process? And how can L&D teams equip them with, say, the right softwares or the right tools that they require for this process?
Yeah. So managers are super important to employee development. If they are not invested, it doesn't matter how good your L&D team is or
Right.
program is, it's not going to land.
Yeah.
That's just my personal view. Um, Managers need to continue to cultivate their employees or the people who report to them, because it not only makes the employee and the team better, it makes the company better as a whole.
Yeah.
So one thing I always recommend to giving managers is a simple, actionable tool like a one-page guide of how to have career development conversations.
Okay.
Okay. Of course, you probably want to do like a training for managers, right? And this would probably benefit from an in-person, but I could see it working online as well. But you want to have a training and to give them a one pager to have, conversations like what skills are they excited to develop, or what's one thing that you'd like to do better. These conversations don't have to be overwhelming, right? But they need to happen consistently, so that way the employee knows that the manager is engaged. Now, if the employee doesn't want to grow, they like their job, they think their skill set's adequate, and so does their boss, well, I mean, that's up to them and how they choose to run their team. But I believe that managers should be continuously trying to help you improve in some shape or form.
Right.
I once had a manager that used that kind of approach, during weekly one-on-ones, and the difference in the team engagement and the skill development was different, like day and night from previous teams they had been on. And it was
Yeah.
definitely like a culture where
Yeah.
employees felt like they were supported in their growth.
Yeah. And I think culture change starts with one person, right? And if the manager of your team is really wanting you to learn and grow, then that will definitely mean that it has that knock-on effect on the rest of the team as well. And then the
It,
entire,
it
yeah,
No, it is. Culture is, it does start with one person, but you also need your influencers.
yeah,
So you need to find those people in the organization that have, you know, they don't have to be a boss. They just have to have social influence
yeah,
in some shape or form. And they're the ones, once you get them on board, they're the ones who can help you get everyone else on board. So there's definitely a strategy to helping change culture.
yeah. So networking along with good managers, that's
Yeah,
probably the way to- yeah.
definitely, definitely.
So, I mean, it's clear that managers do play a very crucial role in employee development. We have just seen that. So, as we look to the future, now the main topic that's trending in every other field right now, it's AI. So, the most exciting frontier of that is perhaps AI and the LLMs that are going on. So, particularly, what role do you see AI and adaptive learning playing in the future of corporate training?
Oh, so AI is already here,
Right.
and it's already reshaping how we're thinking about training. I I volunteer as an advisor for a startup company called Bonsai. And
Okay.
like you, in your company, they help change things, like they help take boring materials and help make them into learning materials.
Yeah.
So what they do is they turn static manuals into dynamic videos. So imagine taking something dry and making it interactive and engaging almost like within 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
That's where we're headed. And of course, with AI, there's always a fear, of the unknown, like, will it replace jobs? Is it ethical? And my advice to L&D teams is to start small. Pilot these tools and see what works, and always keep an eye on how they align with your values. AI, just AI, just remember AI is a tool, and it isn't just a cost saver. It's a personalization tool. Okay. Um, adaptive learning platforms, right? They can tailor content to an individual, making training content more effective and engaging. I know this is true through IXL Math, which is a K-12 online math program.
Yeah.
Um, but what I want to say, when don't be afraid, pilot the tools, and you know, you vote with your wallet, basically. Okay, so if a tool doesn't feel right, don't use it and advocate for something else. There are always alternatives. So just put your money where your values are when it comes to AI, and you guys should be fine, is what I think. But
With
there's
this
a
AI tools, I think another concern right now is probably the security part of the content. You
the
know,
security part of the content is,
yeah,
yeah, you're
that which
definitely,
is shared,
yeah.
or will AI keep it pretty secure? So, what do you think about that?
So especially, well, you're going to want to use your internal tools that have been vetted by your IT and InfoSec team. That's definitely something. And you might want to partner with them and give them tools that they can research that you might want to use, right?
Yeah,
But you definitely want to use that when it comes to security, especially with things like ChatGPT and all that stuff. Just anonymize your data,
yeah,
paste your stuff, paste your stuff in a Google, in a Microsoft document, and find and replace your product names, find and replace any identifying information,
yeah,
and then use it that way. What it gives you, as we all know, is not going to be the end all be all. You're going to have to use that information, you're going to have to massage it, you're going to have to make it sound human, less plastic.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to work with it, but that's how I would go around the security, or go about security. And I would also take a look at their privacy policies, because sometimes um, they'll tell you what they do with the data and why they need it. And then there's also, I know ChatGPT has a feature where you can shut off sending OpenAI any information from your chats. So
Yeah.
the options are out there. We just need to know where to look.
I think in terms of security, Kitabo has that feature called digital rights management.
Mm-hmm.
Probably many L&D teams use with their content, because once your content is encrypted with DRM, then it can't be downloaded by uh, you know some other third party, and it can't be circulated basically. Because
Mm-hmm.
then you're just uh, watermarking your content in a way, so that it can't really be pirated by anyone. And I think that's a really valuable feature to use. But yeah, great ideas, James, about AI. Definitely worth taking points.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, and I like AI is just amazing. My favorite part of AI is computer vision, which, is what makes your puppy filters on your Snapchat or your robot vacuums go around your house. I just love that stuff. They are doing some really neat stuff in agriculture with it. They are targeting weeds in fields by drone, and so they're able to like save money on weed killer, basically, and protect the rest of the crop through computer vision. And just the implications for learning and development are fantastic. Like how I said IXL Math earlier, how it kind of like, if you get a question wrong, it will reorder everything, so that way you get more practice on that certain item.
yeah,
Well, with computer vision, they can read facial cues. So if content's not engaging, like they can give you more engaging content, when it comes to learning. Now we're really far out from that, but it is something that does excite me, especially since it's about learning, right?
yeah. You never know. It might be there by next
I
year.
mean, if it was an ad, I'd feel different, but this is learning content, so I'm all for it.
All right, these insights, James, are incredibly valuable, especially as our industry continues to evolve, the L&D and training industry. And for our viewers, before we wrap up, is there like one key message that you would like our viewers to take away today from a discussion?
I'd encourage you to think about one idea you can take back to your organization that we talked about today. Is it experimenting with AI, empowering your managers, streamlining your content? Whatever it is, just go ahead and start small and scale from there.
All right. That's a good, short, and concise message. That's pretty good, James.
Thanks.
And that brings us to the end of another enlightening episode here with James of Training Transformers. My sincere thanks to you for sharing your valuable insights and experiences with us today. And to our viewers, if you have found value in today's discussion, please make sure to follow us for more conversations with training and L&D leaders who are shaping the future of workplace learning. You can find additional resources and information about today's topic on the Kitabu website. Join us next time as we continue to explore the transformative power of modern learning and development. Until then, keep innovating and transforming your learning. I'm Tejas, and this has been Training Transformers.